Hello and welcome to another Did You Know screencast. My name is Dan English. I am a Magenic Senior BI Consultant out of the Minneapolis office. Today we're going to take a look at the new SQL Server 2008 database backup compression feature. Creating compressed backups is going to be supported in the Developer and Enterprise editions of SQL Server 2008. But every version of SQL Server 2008 or later will actually be able to restore a compressed backup. Some other information from the books online in regards to compression is that compressed and uncompressed backups cannot coexist in a media set, and previous versions of SQL Server cannot read compressed backups. And NT backups cannot share a tape with compressed SQL Server backups. Because a compressed backup is going to be smaller than an uncompressed backup of the same data, compressing a backup typically is going to require less device I/O, and therefore usually increases the backup speed significantly. By default, compression significantly increases the CPU usage, and that additional CPU consumption could have an adverse impact on concurrent operations going on your server. So therefore, you might want to consider creating low priority compressed backups in a session who has the CPU usage limited by the resource governor, which is another new feature in SQL Server 2008. Now the demonstration today is going to be using the February 2008 CTP of SQL Server 2008, which is CTP 6. Now by default, when you install SQL Server 2008, the backup option has compression turned off. I can use SP configure statement and turn the default option to have compression on. And I can actually go into the properties of the instance. If I go to database settings, here's the option, and I can turn it back off by default. I'm going to be running a backup of the AdventureWorks sample database. So the first time I run this, I'm going to run it without compression. We'll take a look at the CPU usage here. We're kind of hovering in the 10 to 20%. I am running this on a VPC, so the amount of time that you see and the usage is going to differ depending on your hardware. So it took about 10-11 seconds to do the backup, and we're looking at about 11-12 megs per second. I ran this a little earlier, and the statistics I got on here is a little different. Second time we're actually going to run it with compression. So I have this additional option on here. The other one you could use is the no underscore compression. So we'll run it this time, and we'll take a look at our CPU usage. And now we're seeing a significant increase in the usage. So we're looking at anywhere to 40 to 70% compared to the 10 to 20. And the amount of time dropped, so it dropped down to about 6 seconds, and we're looking about 21 megs per second. I can run a query against the backup set and see what the compression ratio was. I've run this a few times now. The first time there was no compression ratio because we didn't run it with compression, and the second time we actually see there was a 3.67 ratio. Now if we flip over, we can actually see the files. So the first time I ran it here, it was about 129 megs was the backup, and the second time with the compression was only about 35 megs. So we're taking up less disk space. Now when you actually restore a database that has been compressed, you're going to see basically the same type of performance. So when you restore a compressed backup, the amount of time to restore is going to take less, but the CPU usage will be drastically increased. If I was going to do a backup through the UI, the option for compression is at the bottom here. So you can use the server default, or you can compress it, or you can not compress it. Some other factors that will impact the compression ratio would be the type of data. So character data compresses more than other types of data, and the consistency of the data among the rows on a page. So if a page contains several rows in which the field contains the same value, you're going to see significant compression. In contrast to a database that contains random data or only one large row per page, a compressed backup might be almost as large as an uncompressed backup. Now, whether the data is encrypted will be another factor. So, encrypted data compresses significantly less than unencrypted data, and whether the database is compressed. That is all I have in regards to the new backup compression capability in SQL Server 2008, and I want to thank you for watching this screencast.